Have you been diagnosed with nasal polyps? Contact Prism Clinical Research for more information about our nasal polyp study.
Wild lose 4-3 in overtime to the Blues. Welcome to our Wild Breakaway presented by Prism Research with Wes Walls. I'm Anthony LaPanta. The 4-3 overtime loss brings the Wild season to an end. Crazy game that saw St. Louis jump out with maybe their best 10.5 minutes of the series, take a 2-0 lead. Wild rally for two late in the third to force the extra session.
Yeah, and get a couple late in the third period. Obviously, there was no quit by this Minnesota Wild team, down 3-1 going into the third period. We've seen this all year from the Minnesota Wild, just never quit, never give up. But unfortunately, during this series, right from the game one all the way through game five, we're able to outshoot, outchance, led into many categories, except the one that matters the most is that's putting the puck in the net, and the Wild obviously come up a little bit short.
Look at the numbers from this final game. Minnesota again with the shots on goal edge, 37-27. They had an edge in attempts, 72-54. For the series, Minnesota averaged 37 shots on goal per game. Only Columbus averaged more in the first round of the playoffs this season. And after the game, Bruce Boudreau was looking for answers from a club that had finished second in the league in scoring during the regular year.
It's one of those things you go back and you reevaluate what's missing. I mean, you certainly think that the energy was there, the will was there, but obviously the finish in the playoffs wasn't there. In the regular season, we're getting the finish. This we weren't getting.
Wild scored just 8 goals in this 5-game series. Goals were tough to come by for both clubs. 4 of the 5 games decided by 1 goal. The only one that wasn't was an empty netter for St. Louis that created a 2-goal margin. But the way this playoff series comes to an end is going to leave Wild fans scratching their heads wondering what it's going to take for this club to take the next step.
You can't talk in this 5-game series without talking about Jake Allen at number one, because, just game one, he basically come in here and stole that game by himself. Game two, I thought was a very evenly played game, but I thought game 3, 4, and 5, I thought the Minnesota Wild was the better team. Unfortunately, the other thing that we can talk about other than Jake Allen stealing the show was the fact that Minnesota Wild had all kinds of opportunities and were not able to finish. A team that finished second in the National Hockey League and putting the puck in the net when it mattered most in April in the playoffs, they just were not able to execute and get that big goal to have to force the St. Louis Blues to chase a game. Like you had mentioned earlier, the Wild only had 1 lead in this series, and they needed a few more if they wanted to have a good chance to get by the Blues. But this is a St. Louis Blues team that's been good for a long time. Mike Yeo's done a great job there, and they get to move on and play the Nashville Predators.
If you eliminate the empty net goal scored by the Blues in Game 3, St. Louis scores 10 goals in the series. Minnesota scores 8. That's in a 5-game series. Wild fall today 4-3 in overtime. Blues win the series 4-1. That's our Wild Breakaway. Presented.